Thank you very much for tuning in to episode 9 of Pushing the Pylon. This is your freshly dapper host, Jim Tannhauser. Wow, does time fly. I can't believe we're already on episode 9 of this podcast. It's been fantastic for me to do. I thank you all for listening. I thank you all for contributing, giving advice, debating back with me on some of the sports takes I had. Some of you more than others, of course. But here we are, episode 9, ready to go. It's about to be Halloween this weekend, which might be the scariest thing of them all for some of these NFL head coaches out there. And that's why later on today, we're not having hit or stand. For the first podcast, we're not going to have hit or stand. We're going to have trick or treat, hot seat edition. We're going to talk about some NFL head coaches around the league that may or may not have their jobs on the line. I'll let you know what I think of it. We'll say if it's a trick or a treat. I'm sure you can figure out which will be which. I want to talk a little bit about Monday Night Football. The game may have seemed boring for some of you. The Seattle Seahawks hosting the New Orleans Saints. However, there was some very interesting stuff going on in that game. We will discuss that. The Jags Report this week may be a little boring as the Jags are on a bye week, so we're going to be looking to next week, where that Monday Night Football game is very important to them in the Jaguars, and I'll tell you why when we get to it. But first, Monday Night Football this past week, we had the New Orleans Saints eke out a win 13-10 against the Seattle Seahawks. For those of you who follow our Facebook page, yes, I got the pick wrong technically. It was Saints -5. They only won by 3. However, low-scoring game, led by Alvin Kamara, were the other two things I mentioned in that post. Now let's go over that. 13-10, I don't need to explain to you that it's a low-scoring game. But when I say Alvin Kamara went off, this man looked like Mike Thomas came back, because he put up 10 catches, 128 yards, and a touchdown. And he's a running back, because even with that, he dealt with a full workload from the backfield. He had 20 carries, 51 yards. Absolute saint of that offense that they finally needed to just blow up the other team's defense, and Alvin Kamara was just that. I don't think any of us are going to sit here and act like the Seattle defense is what it used to be, the Legion of Boom. It's far from that. It is very, I almost said washed up. That's pretty disrespectful, but it's more like a washed down version of what it used to be. I mean, they only gave up 13 points. Yeah, you're right. But Alvin Kamara really just had a field day on them. Jameis Winston had a really good day on them. 222 yards, touchdown, no picks. Terrible QBR rating, but that's Jameis Winston for you. If he has a QBR of 10, we expect that out of Winston. But when his team can still win games, when the Saints are 4-2 this season, with Jameis Winston as their quarterback, post Drew Brees, I know Saints fans will take that, and I know one in particular out there that's, very content with what we see from these Saints. But on the other hand, with the Seahawks, I mean, yes, Russell Wilson's out, and the Seahawks probably won't do well until he comes back. However, I don't think he's the only issue. Like we just said, the defense is porous. It's very poor. It gives up a lot of yardage, and most weeks it can give up points, quite often. In this case, it didn't. But it didn't even give, the Geno Smith the chance to play calling from the Seahawks. It felt like every play was an Alex Collins carry, or whoever carried, when it wasn't him, the few carries here and there from, Homer and Geno himself even, I believe, 3 rushing attempts. Rashad Penny being one with 6 carries. It was very predictable from the Seahawks that they were running the ball most of the game, and the Saints were able to control that very well, with the exception of, of course, the big 84-yard touchdown from DK Metcalf to start the game off, essentially. Right after that, the Saints tightened up. They gave up a field goal from that point on. The Saints should be feeling good about that defense, and as soon as they get Michael Thomas back, if they still have the record like they do, doubling up on wins compared to losses, they're going to be a fun opponent for Tampa Bay when they're fully healthy. I'm not saying they're better in Tampa. I'm not saying they're going to take the division from Tampa, but it's going to be a fun game. They do need Michael Thomas back. And hopefully Michael Thomas comes back to at least 80% of what he was last year, or what he was at his best. It's probably not going to be 100% Michael Thomas, but the closer they get to that, the further we may see the Saints go. But other than that, other than DK Metcalf's big 84-yard catch, Geno Smith had under 100 passing yards. He had 167 on the game. You minus those 84. He got sacked 5 times. We talked about Jameis Winston's passer rating being terrible. Well, Geno Smith's was half of his. So, or his QBR. If I said passer, I meant QBR. But just insane stuff, showing you how valuable Russell Wilson really is to his team. Showing you that he's one of, if you didn't know already, Newsflash, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever touch a football. Definitely one of the greatest of my lifetime, or any other at that. He deserves that level of appreciation. Looking the next week, however, the Saints do host the very same Bucs we're talking about. Doesn't look like Michael Thomas is going to be there. They say he's multiple weeks away from a return still. It's going to be unfortunate for the Saints because, man, it's going to be a really good opportunity for New Orleans to overtake Tampa, to at least tie up their record. The best rushing defense in the league, going against a running back who just came off his season best game with Alvin Kamara's, receiving game. And that's what the Saints might need to do if they want to get Kamara to have another big game. Forget the carries. Don't completely abandon the run game, but understand that his average is probably not going to look good at the end of the game. Throw him the screen passes. Get him the ball in the open field. Alvin Kamara can do anything with it. Easily one of the best running backs in the NFL. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. And then the Seahawks, their next opponent, if you don't know, is going to lead us right into our next topic, Jim's Jags Report, as the Jaguars travel to Seattle to play the Seahawks. Now, as a Jags fan, I'll put on my bias hat here for a minute. I love it. I love the opportunity that the Jags have to go on the road after having a bye week and the week before finally getting the monkey off their back for finally winning a game in the first time in over a year. They're playing a Seahawks team who looks completely demoralized in the past 2 weeks. Has had no sign of offense in terms of consistency. We're going to keep excluding that big Metcalf touchdown. That was definitely an outlier in how the Seattle offense is without Russell Wilson. Going against a team like the Jaguars, whose pass defense is mostly awful, it's a really scary thing to see DK Metcalf probably go off against the Jaguars, win or lose. I'm going to say Metcalf has a big game against them. What I'm excited for, though, is that on the other side of the ball, that defense that we said looks shaky, this rookie quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, finally gets to go against his defense on the road and possibly have a little fun on Halloween Sunday. Now, looking at the Jaguars, past few games, I think he's went against pretty decent defenses. I mean, Miami is one of the worst teams in the league, you want to say? Sure. But their defense is not the reason for that. They do have a good defense. They played the Titans. Titans are a sneaky good defense. They played the Bengals, who are now, if you didn't know, a top seed in the AFC. So something has to be said about the Bengals, who just completely shut down Lamar Jackson's offense. Before that, they played the Arizona Cardinals, who are undefeated, have one of the best comprehensive teams in the NFL. And before that, of course, is the Broncos and Texans, but you're getting Trevor Lawrence with his first 2 NFL games of his career. So this might be the best opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to go against a poor defense with a little bit of NFL experience on his end, after a bye week, having 2 weeks to prepare for Seattle. Jaguars being underdogs by 3 is really intriguing to me. And that's when I take off my Jags fanhood hat. As someone who just watches the game of football, who sits here and does a podcast that some of you may watch. I like this opportunity for Trevor Lawrence. I think he comes out and balls and has a great game. I think James Robinson, he may have the better game of them all, but that will be on the back of Trevor Lawrence managing the game as well as I think he's able to. I'm not saying Jamal Adams isn't going to get his. I'm not saying Jamal Adams may not be a problem in the secondary and may not even run up and stop James Robinson a bunch of times like he's one of the best safeties in the league at doing. I'm just saying it's going to be a fun game. And if Jacksonville is going to steal some wins from teams this season, this would be one of them. This is the opportunity. No Russell Wilson, 2-game losing streak for Seattle, winning streak for you. I keep saying it, but I stress it that it's a perfect storm coming, and it's Urban Meyer's chance to prove that he shouldn't be on the hot seat anymore. That I get, okay, off the field stuff, I guess he's on the hot seat for the rest of his coaching career probably. But in terms of on the field, if you could pull out a win against the Seattle Seahawks, 2 wins on the season, you already played the undefeated Cardinals, like we said, Bengals, who are really good, Titans, who are finally showing the team that we all thought they kind of were anyway. Just really big factors that excite me to watch, that should excite you to watch. And comes next podcast, episode Big 10, episode 10, we may be talking about the Jaguars having another victory. Don't want to jinx it yet, though. We'll wait and see. Moving on, I do want to point out some exciting games we have coming up this week. Packers and Cardinals on Thursday Night Football. That could be game of the week, and it might be the first game of the week. Not sure when this podcast is going to drop exactly. It likely will be a bit delayed from our normal Thursday 1 o'clock drop. But that's okay. I'm fine with that. On the back end of it, I will talk about the Cardinals and Packers on our TikTok videos like we usually do. Make sure to be on the lookout for that if this does come out before Thursday Night Football. If not, disregard anything I say that's wrong and highlight anything I say that's correct. I don't think it's too bold to say that this could be the game of the week. I mean, J.J. Watt being out for the Cardinals kind of gives Aaron Rodgers a little more balance to have a big day. He may anyway, win or lose. But no Devontae Adams. That's really the headline in this game. Absolute killer for Rodgers. He's going to need his other guys to step up. Allen Lazard, out. Where does he go at that point? I don't know. I won't doubt Aaron Rodgers. He has shown in his career that he needs minimal to no offensive support to be great. Because he's a bad man. Whether it's Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson, Aquinius St. Brown, or Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, whoever you want to put there, Aaron Rodgers does well with. Robert Tonyan may be a big target in this game on Thursday. But on the other side of the ball, you got MVP candidate Kyler Murray. That's not to say Rodgers isn't one in his own right, but Kyler Murray, this is his year. If he's not on your radar already, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. This was his year to prove it to you because, my Lord, he has to be in your top 5 quarterbacks in this league. And I know we get back into the episode-old debate about Josh Allen versus Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's the real deal, and it's further solidified if he can go and beat the Packers. I don't care if it's at home. I don't care if Devontae Adams isn't playing. This is a big statement game on Thursday for Kyler Murray. And, Vegas clearly believes in him. Almost a touchdown favorite. You could say that's from Adams, but take away 2 points? Cardinals are still a 3.5 to 4 point favorite, probably. That says a lot, and it's up to them to go out and prove it and show that they're legit. If they can get to 8-0, we're going to have some really, really intriguing conversations about this Arizona Cardinals team and where they stand. Some are saying they're already the best in the league. I can't fault that at all. If at worst for me, they're second. It's either them or the Cowboys, in my opinion. If we could see them play this week, I would love it, but we can't. And we're going to have to deal with the Cowboys playing a great Sunday night game, going against the Vikings in Minnesota. Historically, Cowboys in Minnesota, scary place. I was just talking about with my dad, Cowboys fan himself. Playoff game, however many years ago, where I think it was Sidney Rice, Percy Harvin, receivers like that, tore up the Cowboys. And I still hear the skull horn in the background from every first down. That sound was sounded way worse, way better than what I just made it sound like. I kind of sound like a dying dying giraffe there, a dying walrus, whatever you want to say. But regardless, man, if it that made me pop. That made me pop. But anyway, they have the Cowboys as a very slight favorite in that game. So going forward after this week, we're gonna have a way better picture of Cardinals versus Cowboys. Who's the legit team in the NFC? Both may very well be, but who is the more legit team? We talked about Bucs Saints. I think that's a big chance for a good game. Looking like Tampa probably edges it out because of Michael Thomas not being there. If Michael Thomas was in, I don't care if it's his first week back or what, I'm liking the Saints' momentum they bring into this game. Especially when Tom Brady is through his 600 touchdown. Everyone's excited for him. Everyone's happy for it. Great. But are they able to refocus and go against New Orleans? I know Tom Brady will. He's one of the best people to have a short-term memory, good or bad, for football. But can the rest of the team? We'll see. Rams get another layup game. It should be layup game. They played the Lions last week, made it a little harder than it had to be. They get the Texans this week. We all know the Rams are one of the best defenses in the league. I get that. But for these past 2 weeks, they might have 2 weeks off, and it's not even a bye week. If the Texans put up double digits, I'm impressed. Bengals and Jets, a matchup which even as recently as a year or two ago, none of us would care about. But all of a sudden, the Bengals are one of the best teams in the AFC, 5-2. Jets are still the Jets. I mean, they nearly gave up 60 in New England. That's awful. But the Bengals, Joe Burrow, my goodness. I know Dak's going to probably win Comeback Player of the Year. And by probably, I mean, they might as well give it to him now. But don't forget Joe Burrow coming off a major ACL tear. Playing the way he is now with the Bengals. Nobody expected the Bengals to be this good. Maybe decent. Maybe better than teams, in their division. Maybe a third place team. But to be one of the best teams in the AFC right now, in turn one of the better teams in the league, that's unbelievable stuff. And if they get tripped up by the Jets, then none of this matters. But I have a feeling they won't. Alright, this is the time in the episode where we didn't talk about this, but listen to this one. We're going to try this new thing where every week, every episode, I'm going to flash a card on the screen at some point. And if you are the first one to write on the YouTube video the exact time stamp of when I flash the card, you win the card. I'm not saying it's going to be $1 million card. It's just a little fun thing to see who's really watching out there and who may want a free card. So with that, gotcha. Not this time stamp. Don't write this time. We're not going to talk about that yet. But regardless, coaches on the hot seat. This is going to be a hit or stand. I didn't really want it to be. I said Halloween's coming up. We're going to do a trick or treat edition. The first annual trick or treat edition on Pushing the Pylon. It's going to be coaches in the hot seat. Few coaches out there, some people are wondering how they still have a job. Some people are wondering why their job is not being called out for more often. We just saw Mike Tomlin this week get rumors about the USC head coaching job. And I love Mike Tomlin's response on it. Credit to him. He is, without a doubt, one of my favorite coaches in the NFL. He has been for seasons, even when the Steelers beat the Jaguars. The respect I have for Mike Tomlin is immense. And everyone on his team should be willing to run through a wall for that guy because he loves that team. And, every coach can go up there and say they're not interested in a job. But the way he did it, with the conviction he did it and the confidence he did it with, he needs to be crowned one of the best coaches in the league. He's a Hall of Fame NFL coach. There's no doubt about that. Never had a losing season? Are you joking? Coaches get fired for one losing season. And Mike Tomlin's never had one, and people are still talking about him maybe going to a different program. Insane stuff. Mike Tomlin, you will not be in this segment. You are one of the best coaches in the league. You will never be in the hot seat on my Pushing the Pylon show. You will never be in the hot seat. And that's going to look bad one day when he finally, if he does start losing and people want him fired. I refuse. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to be biased. You're hearing it right now. Mike Tomlin permanently on the throne, on the cool throne, as some call it, instead of the hot seat. Patrick Mahomes card, turn up. hot seat time. We'll talk about coach number 1. A lot of you know who it's going to be. It's Urban Meyer. Now, off the field stuff, of course, he's always going to be on the hot seat, as I mentioned at the top of this episode. But you stopped a 20-something game losing streak. I think it might have been 20 exact. You did it with a rookie quarterback. You did it in London. At the very least, Urban Meyer's hot seat is turned down a little cooler. A little cooler. He's still on the seat. It's still a hot seat, but it's a little cooler. It's not scorching hot. Where if Urban Meyer lost in London, they may have left him there. It may have been the second time this season he didn't get on a team playing with his team. And it may have been the last time. But for now, he's still there. If he can beat Seattle, even better. But even if he loses to Seattle, I'm not sure it's the right time to fire him. I don't think so. We'll see if the Jaguars think otherwise. Next, and I'll give credit to CBS Sports here. I'm using a hot seat rankings list they used. We're just using that in the order of the coaches they list. I don't necessarily agree that the coach I mentioned first or second is on a hotter seat than the third or fourth. Just the list they have. David Culley of the Texans next. This is a weird one for me. I don't think he is a suitable NFL head coach. I don't think the Texans can win with him. But I don't think the Texans can win with that many people at all anyway. Is it David Culley's fault that the Texans are this bad? No, not at all. Is it his fault that the Deshaun Watson media storm is taking up all of their press, regardless of if they win or lose? No, that's not his fault at all. But I do think there's better coaches out there that may change the culture and philosophy of the Houston Texans right now. Bill O'Brien definitely wasn't that guy. David Culley's probably not that guy, even though he's better than Bill O'Brien. But somebody else should probably be there. That hot seat's a little unfair, in my opinion. It's just a job you sign up for. When you're a Houston Texans coach, right about now, in this era, the past year or so, you know there's a lot of issues that come with it. So, David Culley, respect to him. Hopefully, as a Jags fan, put the hat back on. Hopefully, he doesn't succeed. But as a person, I hope he finds a little footing in the NFL and shows that he can be a good coach, regardless if they put him on a bad team like the Texans. Matt Nagy, number 3 with the Bears. I think Matt Nagy's a good coach. But man, the Bears, whatever their philosophy is these past few years, it needs to change. I think Matt Nagy did a terrible job of handling the quarterback controversy this offseason. He let Andy Dalton be the definite bona fide starter. Then he put Justin Fields in but said Dalton's still the starter. And now, last I've heard, he still said Andy Dalton's probably the starter when he comes back, but Justin Fields doesn't really have a chance there. The Bears, again, same as the Texans. Good personality, good individual in a bad situation. That's Justin Fields right now. He just played Tampa Bay and got completely shellacked, and that's okay. And most rookie quarterbacks in that situation would get beat up like that. Oh, what about Mac Jones? He lost. All right, that was a weird game where even Tom Brady got outperformed by Mac Jones, some would say. Don't get me on my Mac Jones debates yet. That's for another episode when Mac Jones pops off or does terrible. He'll be the highlight of this. But back to Matt Nagy. I don't like how he handled the Dalton situation. You have Justin Fields, this big, talented, fantastic quarterback, and you just put doubts in the kid all season long by giving the job over and over again to a guy who, yeah, last year he did fine. When he was with the Cowboys, he proved serviceable. But the Bears don't need serviceable, they need a future. And Justin Fields is the future. And if Matt Nagy can't admit that, it's time for a new coach. And hopefully Bears GM and ownership front office sees that and gets those fans out there what they deserve. As we all know, one of the most diehard fan bases in the NFL is that damn Windy City. Next coach on the list, we have Vic Fangio of the Denver Broncos. Fangio, tomato, Fangio for some of us. But Denver Broncos this year, and another quarterback situation that I don't know if they handled as well as I think they should have. I'm no NFL coach, but again, we talked about this in past podcasts. Drew Lock, the way he was drafted, the way he was developed initially, to abandon it now and then to expect him to come into a backup role when Bridgewater's not doing well, like Thursday night against Cleveland last week. It's just too much to expect from Drew Lock. He needs more time to develop. He needs a team that's willing to invest in him. The Broncos' defense is getting hurt left and right. So, the offense is on the field a lot more and usually down by a good margin. They got the pieces. You have like the Jerry Jeudy's hurt. When they come back, that's an elite player right there. You have Patrick Surtain, elite player on defense. Elite. That they have to give that man every dollar he asks for in a few years when he gets a real contract, because that is someone the Broncos need to keep that personality on that defense. I still think of the Broncos as a scary defense to go against. Excuse me. When Jacksonville played them at the start of the year, I wanted to pull up the stats for that very quickly. And yeah, it doesn't matter, I guess, because the Jaguars are considered a bad team, so the Broncos should be holding them down. But Trevor Lawrence had 118 yards, 2 picks, rushing, had 47 yards on 11 carries. Bridgewater and Cortland Sutton had big games. I mean, that's the Denver defense that I expect them to usually be against any team, is this powerhouse, defend home field, mile high, terrible for other teams to come and play in. In that game, by the way, they went to Jacksonville and whooped them like that. So, I don't know. Vic Fangio, I like him as a coach. In my opinion, I would say not on the hot seat. I would say it's a trick. I know I haven't done that for the last few. We'll go back. Urban Meyer, that's fine. I expect him to be on the hot seat. We have David Culley, Texans. I understand that hot seat. We'll say that's a trick, is a little bit of a trick. Matt Nagy, we'll say, is a treat. I think he is deservingly on the hot seat. Bears got to figure it out. Even if they have 3 wins, they have to do something different. They have to show a little more investment in Justin Fields. Now, with Denver here, with Vic Fangio, I feel the same way, but I'm going to say it's a trick. I'm going to say Denver, that's not their problem. Keep him as your coach, and once the injuries heal up, then we'll really see what the issues are in Denver. Final coach here, this one's real interesting to me, is Brian Flores in the Miami Dolphins. Last year, coach of the year, he was the coach of the year. Was he not? Now I'm doubting myself. Regardless, one of the top coaches in the NFL last year. Everybody was rooting for Brian Flores, unless you were an AFC East fan of a different team. I love to see Brian Flores succeed, but now, this year, the honeymoon's over. These fans expect results. Tua has another year under his belt. Has an offseason. He's coming into this year. Dolphins beat the Patriots week 1. Fantastic. And ever since, it's been completely downhill. Tua's gotten hurt, yes. Jacoby Brissett, not a guy I expect to go win football games constantly. I get it. But the Dolphins keep losing. That is not I don't think, a patient fan base anymore. They had their little taste of what success can look like. That defense banded together, looked good. Tua has everyone's hype and hopes up in Miami. If they keep losing, Brian Flores has to go. I don't think this is a trick. I think it's a treat, and it's probably the worst treat I ever see. I wish it was a trick. I don't think Flores is the problem. I think Flores should stay the coach in Miami. But if they're not going to do anything this year and they're going to keep floundering away wins, you're going to see Brian Flores gone. I think that's a treat. I think that's a valid hot seat, unfortunately. I just hate to admit it. And, second of all, the guy who's touted as this big defensive guru, the Dolphins' defense looked terrible this year. I don't care what you say. I defend them, but they look terrible this year. There's no excuse for the Dolphins, how they look. They could be better for sure. Lost to the Jaguars. I'm sorry. When you lose to the Jaguars, your coach is automatically in the hot seat. It just happens that way. It's just how it is. Pete Carroll loses this week, I bet you some bold writer out there, as dumb as it is of a take, goes out there and writes about Pete Carroll being in the hot seat. Watch. I hope the Jaguars win so we can see that reality. But watch. We'll see. They mentioned Joe Judge here as well. I think that's a complete trick now. The Giants are looking better. I don't think he's the right NFL head coach for them anyway, but no reason to be on the hot seat right now. Giants are just hurt and not that great. Sorry, Giants fans, not that great. Matt Rule, yeah, start of the year, people wanted to say he was one of the Coach of the Year candidates. Now the team's completely fell off, and now people are calling for his job. I don't know. He's made some bad calls out there. I think it was the Thursday night against the Texans. Even when they won, there were some coaching decisions just seemed really questionable from Rule. I would say not in the hot seat. I would say that's another trick for now, just like Joe Judge. Trick, but can easily become valid in a treat closer to Thanksgiving. We may be calling it a main course versus appetizer, if you will. Those two may be on the hot seat then, right next to the turkey. We'll see. That was trick or treat. That was pretty fun. Now looking forward to next week, I'm going to be posting picks like I usually do. Make sure on Sunday morning to be on the lookout for those. If you want, leave your picks on there as well. I'd love to go head to head against some of you in picks to see who does better. And if we have some participation with that, maybe we'll have a contest for the last few weeks of the season. Give out some free NFL apparel to you guys for participating. For now, the NFL card offers out there we talked about earlier in the episode. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you already lost. If you know what I'm talking about, hopefully you're already typing away because somebody may have beat you to it. Regardless, this has been your host, Jim Tannhauser, with Pushing the Pylon. I thank you all very much for tuning in. See you all real soon. Take care.